Hello.
Hi, I'm just waiting for Daniel to get on. How are you?
I'm good, Mary. How you doing?
Good. Good. I hope he saw this. Oh man. Oh, I gotta go check.
Thank you for facilitating.
Oh, no problem. Let's see. How long have you been out? Dropbox, is it?
Yes, Dropbox I've been since September, so coming up on a little over 8 months.
Oh, okay. What are you working on there?
Customer stories, customer references, customer reviews. So a lot of like what's the tee up for this conversation is just like how like a customer's end-to-end experience when they start working with marketing. So like if their entry point is like a case study, like what does the handoff look like between the content team and the customer marketing team? And a lot of that is being like reimagined right now at Dropbox because of the recent layoff, because of just like different structural changes. So
Yeah.
we actually have like a dedicated offsite for this next week to really like get into the details. But yeah, that's why we're so keen to understand how other folks are doing it, getting it done.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Daniel's getting on right now.
Hello.
Hi, Daniel. I'm sorry if I didn't give you the right link and
I'm sure
whatever else.
I'm sure you did, Mary. I've just been given I was out of the office 1 week for work travel and 1 week for personal for 2 weeks. I've just been sort of getting out from underneath all of the crazy out of office email, Slack, to-do list mountain. So I'm sure you did. This is probably just your user error.
Well, thank you for being so forgiving.
No problem. I'm just finishing up now, Mary. I know you said that this was going to be informal and you didn't want me to feel like I had to do it, but I did put together some slides because I felt like one, no thing that I ever do is ever complete without a GIF or two involved. But two, it was helpful to see some of the structure that my thoughts had.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Let me see if I can. Does it show that you can share?
No, it says host disabled participant screening sharing.
Let me figure this out. I'm going to make you the host.
Cool.
Okay. Now see if you can.
I can. Give me 1 second. I'm just finishing up one last bullet point on here.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
Deanna, nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet
We
you.
are recording, just so you both know. A lot of people ask that we record this. So if that's okay with both of you, I'm just going to let it keep doing that.
Totally fine by me.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm sure Bree will love to watch it over.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I can give a quick intro while you're finishing that up. So I'm Deanna Carrillo. I joined Dropbox last year to do customer stories, customer reference program, and kind of managing our online peer reviews. And so what that kind of lent itself to is kind of the overarching like customer experience when they work with customer marketing. And we're like really reimagining right now like the content piece of it. Like who owns things, how does that work? So like really keen to see how you do it at Grafana. Is that how you say it, Grafana?
That is exactly how you say it.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's awesome, Deanna. Background, I'm Daniel Palay. I run the customer and community marketing team here at Grafana Labs. I've been here for 2 years and now almost 5 months. When we started, we kind of had there were people who were working on customer marketing, but basically the moment I started, we had a team. And so before that point, I was at Elastic for near 7 years, where I got to experience both sides of this. Are you on the same team as content? Are you not on the same team as content? So I have it's why I have thoughts about how things should be structured, how things can be structured. I mean, pros and cons on both sides.
Perfect.
And then let me just finish this one. Cool. Now let's do this thing, shall we? Boom, boom, boom. Changing colors of text so it can be read. Gonna get this out of that window. Gonna share my screen. And Mary, it looks like we have somebody else in the waiting room.
Yeah, where is that?
I think
I
since
don't
I'm
know
the
if I
host.
can see it now
Since I-
because you're the host now.
Okay. Arini Balachar, that seems like a name I recognize, so I'm gonna just submit it.
Yes. Yep.
Cool. I'm the host. Awesome.
Yeah, sorry about that. Harini
Okay.
and there was Connie Chang
Yeah.
was coming.
There we go. Awesome. And I'll show my face so that, you know,
Woohoo.
the recording can, break, I guess. Hello.
It will
Awesome.
not.
Then let's get started. So, are y'all, let's just go slideshow, because why not? So hello, Arini, hello, Connie. You missed my little bit preamble, but I'm Daniel. I run customer and community marketing at a company called Grafana Labs. We're an open source observability tool that many of y'all companies actually use. Deanna, I know for a fact that Dropbox pays us. So that's awesome. I can't say that publicly, so we'll just assume that I didn't say that on a recorded message and this isn't getting posted later, but if somebody gets mad at me, Deanna could just put a good word with them that I didn't mean any harm by that. Cool. So what we're going to talk about today, and I guess by background, so before I was at Grafana, I was at a company called Elastic for 6.5 years doing the same exact thing. In that situation, I was in many different iterations, both in parallel with content and then outside of content. At Grafana, and you'll see as we go through this, we're the closest I've ever been to a content team, which is really awesome. So I've been through various iterations. I have thoughts, pros and cons on both, on all of those areas. So I figured I'd walk through how it is on our end, what I recommend, the pros and cons, and then sort of just talk through it from there. That sound good for everybody?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Also, Harini, I love this way your persona, as it were. This is great. This AI thing is amazing.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's not all the time we are presentable from home, and it's really nice.
Awesome. So cool. Let's talk through it. Oh, I missed a slide. There we are. The main options. So there's really 3 options that I see it. One, you're part of an organization that is so small that you're literally doing everything. There's 2, which is you're sort of outside of content within the broader reporting structure that eventually sort of gets back up to somebody who can make a final decision. The way I sort of talk through this later on is think about a family tree, your cousins, whether that's first cousins or second cousins, somewhere up in your family tree, it matches. And then there's integrated with content in the same direct reporting structure. So in that case, you're basically like fraternal twins. Right? You have the same exact responsibilities, the same exact aid, the same exact responsibilities and things of that nature. So option 1, this is where all my gifts come in. Where if you're so small, you're doing everything. It's some combination of all of these things put together, right? You have all of your different priorities. You have you're hyperventilating in one area, you're spitting magic in one, you're boiling the ocean in another. But the point there is that you have all of the power to get things done, but all of the responsibility at the same time to do everything else. And now I'm not just talking about customer marketing. I'm just talking like if you're the one person responsible for content, customer marketing, all of these things put together. So what does that mean? Well, on the pros, that means you get to do what you want, right? You can set your own agenda. The only thing keeping you from doing all of those things, from writing all those stories, is you. And also, there's no sort of the speed to production there. There's no talking back and forth. There's no handoffs. There's no, hey, how do you like to structure interviews? How do you want me to give you this interview? It's okay, cool. I get the lead, I get the interview, I write something, it's done. The cons, not the least of which are all of the gifts I just put up there, is what I term the Anatevka approach. And if any one of you, like myself, is a musical theater fan, and you've happened to watch Fiddler on the Roof, as I have many times, there's a part in it where they talk about living in the town as being underpaid or overworked and underpaid. And that is basically this role if you are the only person doing it. In fact, I would argue that many of us, even if you're the only person doing customer marketing, are overworked and underpaid. It's also very hard to prioritize when everything is a priority. So you end up getting into this position where you're writing stories, you're trying to get things out. So quantity becomes the main thing over quality, because you don't have the time to actually sit down and write something, because you need to get things out so you can get things off your plate. I'll pause there. Does that, I know that doesn't really talk about the content versus customer marketing side of things, but I wanted to just admit that sometimes in these organizations and in my history, there's no difference.
Daniel, can you check the waiting room quick?
Yeah, I can. Sorry, I didn't mean to admit.
No, you're fine.
There we are. Christina is here. Hello, Christina. Welcome to the
I
fun.
am here. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for like disrupting the flow, so I'll go on mute.
Totally fine. You caught me right at the end of the slide,
Okay,
and
cool.
I was just walking through sort of the pros and cons of the sort of, if you are the only person doing all of these things at once, right? That's not the main part of this conversation, but I did want to talk through and give voice to the fact that many of us can sometimes be the one person who's doing content and customer marketing all wrapped into one. It'd be unfair if we just said, hey, everybody has a team, and that's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
So, and you also missed I have to put GIFs and references to musical theater in pretty much every presentation I do.
No worries.
Cool. So any thoughts, any feelings on this one, or should we move on to the main attraction for the conversation?
Yeah, it definitely resonates for sure.
Cool. Well, I guess I could say cool, but I could also say, Deanna, I'm very sorry that resonates, because this situation is not the ideal situation. The overworked and underpaid and overstretched and overstressed is a conversation and a talk that I can give beyond just this one. But I am sorry that you are either going through that or have gone through it. I hope that is not the norm right now.
Yeah, it's definitely reminds me of former roles. We're blessed to have a multi-person team at Dropbox. So
perfect. So let's move on then. So the second, and this is what I was talking about, cousins with content. Somewhere up in your family tree, somewhere up in your reporting structure within marketing, you match up. But either you don't have the same boss or you don't have the same boss's boss, which means there isn't somebody that can come in and say, hey, look, you two, talk, and we're going to figure out these priorities together, because you have differing priorities. And I just kind of built this, Mary, you might recognize the structure on the left-hand side. It's actually from my long-term planning deck when it comes to customer marketing.
Yes.
But so don't take this as like everybody has a system, but the idea here is customer and community marketing has their own structure. Content has their own structure. They're not together. They're not built the same. They're not necessarily have a one-to-one relationship from team to team. There might be 1 to 2 people on customer marketing. There might be 6 on content, but one of them on, you can see here, like one's responsible for blog, one's responsible for creating content for the website, one's doing emails. And then you have this sort of other ephemera thing where somebody might be doing SEO, somebody might be doing social, all of these things. Also, apologies for the random line that goes up that way. Apparently, when you do slides at the last minute, you don't catch everything. So the idea here, though, is you are siloed. You are separate. You don't have the same North Star, other than the sort of your North Star that you share is the company's North Star, which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing. But when you're talking about teams, when you're talking about priorities and wanting to work better with one another, having a North Star that is slightly closer to your actual work is a lot better. And so where do you get, like, what are the pros and cons? And I will say that this structure is actually how the majority of the time that I was at Elastic, we functioned. So a lot of these sort of pros and cons are things I experienced 2 to 3 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago, could be completely different now. So take that with a grain of salt. Now let's go through the pros. If you have separate teams, they generally tend to be bigger. And that's because you're not fighting over the same headcount, right? If you're on the same team as content that reports up to one structure, you're fighting for the same headcount within that structure, as opposed to 2 different teams fighting over sort of grander marketing structure. Bigger teams on both sides mean the ability to produce more things, or at least onboard more things, right? As customer marketers, we might not necessarily be producing more things, but you might have the ability to have somebody in APAC or in Europe, or multiple people in the States, or multiple people wherever you're based. So you could do more of that triage. You could do more of that qualifying, more of those references, more of those stories. And on the flip side, you might get lucky that the content team might actually have somebody that has more time because they have more people on their team to produce. And then the thing that we actually experienced at Elastic after running into all of these cons you see on the right-hand side was that we finally were able to hire our own writer, somebody that was completely dedicated to our team, not writing any of the website copy, not writing any of the emails, any of that stuff. They were specifically writing customer blogs, customer stories, case studies. We had to share them a little bit with PR, but PR was also part of our team. So those are sort of some of the advantages over there. In my mind, those advantages pale in comparison to the cons. And specifically this first one, you do not have the same OKRs. And most often those OKRs are developed in silos, and so do not understand the dependencies that other people have. And so what does that mean? That means that there's no clear path on who wins when priorities are different, right? If you have an OKR that you put down and the content team has an OKR that they put down that are diametrically opposed to one another, how are you going to get through that if you don't have that sort of common ancestor or common person above you that can be like, look, talk to one another and work this out? And somebody's going to get mad. Somebody's not going to be able to get their stuff done, right? And then you're left in a position like, okay, cool. What do we actually do? How do we make this happen? Which is actually how we got at Elastic to that bottom left point about hiring our own person, because there was no way we could deliver the things that we needed to deliver to the business if we were dependent on a team that wasn't ours. And that's mostly because if you look at the third bullet point, customer marketing, and many of you probably experienced this too, when you're not part of the same team, you take a back seat to product marketing, engineering, demand gen, and other requests that come into content, because those, and I feel bad saying this as a customer marketer, those have a much more direct impact right away, return on investment, if you will, immediate gratification for things that are happening customer facing right now. A lot of what we do, obviously probably all of you understand this, but in case you're new to the field, a lot of what we do takes time. Like, there isn't that immediate gratification. So us taking time away from the content team to write something that might not ever get published because we run into approval issues, or won't get published for another 15 months or what have you, generally time takes a backseat to literally everything else. The final thing here is you often operate in different systems, whether that is a tracking system like Monday or Asana or Trello, or at Elastic we use GitHub to track our content, but also for all our references, right? Like some people we use Reference Edge, and how do we integrate that with our production tracking system and all of those different things? So there's a lot of things that happen when you have 2 different and siloed and separated teams, especially when you don't have, again, I go back to the family tree metaphor. You don't have that common ancestor to come in and be like, look, people, get your shit together and actually talk to one another. So if you ask me, I would much prefer to do the first option where you literally did everything, because you have much more control over your destiny. I mean, again, you will get burnt out. You will be unhappy from time to time because you're just working so much. Try not to be that for too long, and then just skip over this step completely, because this one will actually lead to, in my view, worse outcomes if you stay in this one too long. I will take a pause here. Any thoughts, questions, concerns, resonating? This Daniel guy's crazy. Why is he talking?
Yeah, I think this definitely resonates, and this is kind of one of the possibilities that we see as we're kind of working through things. So great considerations and good things for us to look out for as we strategize how our team is structured. So I'm really looking forward to the third option and seeing
Cool.
what that one looks like.
And now you know why I structured it this way, because the third option, in my view, now there is no nirvana when it comes to this, but it is the closest thing to nirvana for us, right? Cool. Let's go to the third one. The third one is what I will call fraternal twins with content. And what you're looking at is actually the structure that our team has, complete with the people's names, complete with how we work. So we have my boss, Julie, who's the head of head of global communications. Below her is myself, Michelle, and Anne. We are all on the same, job level, if you will. We are all on the same structure. We all have one jump to get to the head of the team, which means when we set team priorities, we are all setting them in the same room. We are all talking about what's happening. We are all communicating and knowing what the give and take is, what is Michelle's team working on? What is Anne's team working on? What am I working on? If I'm working on something that Michelle's team can't handle, I can go to Michelle and be, Michelle, hey, do you have a freelancer budget that we can use to tell our stories? And so we're all very close. We're all working hand in hand. And not only that, but because we have an SEO person on staff, we can make sure that all of our work is actually people care about it. We're able to optimize it. We're able to get people able to find it. Eventually, we'll add in our social media person. You're currently listening to the de facto social media head of Grafana Labs. So it's a wonder that we're still doing well there. In case you haven't noticed, self-deprecating humor is pretty much how I get through my life. So apologies if it's too much. But anyway, the fact is we are all on the same playing field. We are all together in every room when we have a team offsite, or when my boss goes to a marketing heads lead, so she reports directly up to our VP of marketing. And when he has something where his direct reports are fighting it out, Julie is making sure that all of our priorities, whether it's Michelle or myself or Anne's, are brought together in that meeting. So we are represented on equal footing, no matter if we're talking to ourselves or broader within the organization. And so what are the pros and cons here? One, we set OKRs together. But at the same time, if you look over to the first one, that can actually lead to some anger and some annoyance, which is sometimes you're just going to lose. Sometimes you're not going to be able to get everything you want to get. But at least in this situation, you'll know it at the beginning. You'll know it because you are part of that conversation, and not simply because somebody else in some other department has set their OKRs that are diametrically opposed to you. Like I said, you are on the same footing with the same responsibility. Anne doesn't have any direct reports, but both Michelle and I have 2 direct reports. So we're kind of facing the same managerial issues, not issues, but the same managerial tasks, the same managerial things. So we know what the amount of work that the other one is going through. So we can kind of give each other grace if we're having to sort of jump in other places. Because we're on the same team, we have regular meetings, we have regular insight, but even more, because we are on the same team, I can actually set, and we have it next week, we have a tri-weekly meeting with the content team to go through everything that is being worked on our end and on their end. So we make sure that it's not just a quarterly conversation and then we kind of just let it go. We stay in lockstep every 3 weeks to make sure that we don't get friction. We don't have issues along the way. And simply put, communication's easier. We have that, that mutual ancestor, the head of the team, to be like, look, if you guys, I can come in and help you. How is this not working? Let's prioritize. Let's prioritize this over that and things of that nature. But if you look over at the cons, like I said, sometimes you're going to lose out. I've had to adjust to a lot of losses in terms of priorities or things getting pushed out. And this final point, I know I'm extending the family metaphor pretty far, but surely you folks have experienced this. Sometimes you treat your family the worst because you know they're not going to turn their back on you. You know that they'll still love you, right? Sometimes we treat our content team the worst and be like, oh, here's a story, without even like looking at their calendar, without even giving them information. It's just like, oh yeah, you trust us, here, go and do it. And sometimes that leads to consternation, and we have to have this sort of family meeting where we get together and be like, sorry, we did that, we won't do that again, we apologize, and work through it. But those are just things you have to work through and try to figure out and try to remember that just because they're your teammates and just because you're closest with them doesn't mean you can treat them worse than anybody else in the organization. And it's not like you're treating them bad, but it's not like you're respecting their calendars and their to-do list as much as you would with other people that you don't work with every day.
I have a question here, Daniel.
Mm.
So I come from a training background. I basically work with education services within my company, and we deliver certifications for our company.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, how does Marcom work with the training team? Are they part of your family at all? Or do you see them as a customer? Do you see them as a peer? Do you see them as an ambassador? How does, it's been a challenge to get our marketing team to engage with us because they have all these other priorities. And we often see that we are, there's a lot of content that could potentially be reused within the training. And at the same time, the training itself provides so much value that it could be used as a marketing strategy to actually be posted on. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you have you worked with the training team, and where do they fit into the tree?
Yeah, so personally, I will say this, that we currently don't have a training team at Grafana Labs. But I will go back to, we did add Elastic, we had one at Grafana, but to answer your question, the other good thing about having all of us together is we have this general ethos that we are a service organization for the rest of the company. And so we provide, whether it is our team providing references or stories or what have you, or the content providing the words, or editing services, it doesn't matter. We accept requests and people know where to find us. We have a content channel within Slack. And, I will say one of the best things that happened about 4 years ago was the company made a decision to say, hey, we're going to blog every single day. Like, this is what's going to be. So last year alone, we published 265 blog posts. And so it's just part of the company culture, which I know you can't necessarily replicate our culture, but replicating the idea that, hey, we are here to provide a service. That's I know that's sort of the flip side of what you're asking, because you're coming from the training side to the asking the marketing side. But the more that you can showcase the work that you're producing as, hey, this is driving conversation, or this is moving the needle, or this is providing value to our end customers, the more the marketing team or the marketing communications team will see that and be like, cool, you're actually doing part of our job for us. How can we integrate this into our website? How can we integrate this into our various programs and things of that nature?
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
I have a question on like vendors and vendor management. So I saw on your slide that while you're on the same team with content, it looks to me that content like will own like the vendors for the customer stories. Can you kind of walk me through that process of that like nirvana state or near nirvana state, and how like customer handoff and experience works in that setting?
Yeah, so you are correct, Deanna, that the content team also they control the freelancer budget. Whether those freelancers are writing for our purposes or their purposes or product marketing's purposes or the events team purposes, that all sits within them. And that is a good thing, because that means whatever freelancers are onboarded using our style guide, know who our editors are, know the process. So I had that's actually that's a big advantage that we have here that we didn't necessarily have at Elastic, because we had to sort of send them our style guide and teach them and work them on our side, which sort of slowed down our production side. And so for here, our head of content, Michelle, will onboard them. We have a whole slew of them. And then we actually do, whether it is a freelancer or somebody internally, we always do, I say always, again, you treat your family the worst. We try to always do a production brief and a production handoff in terms of the types of stories we're telling. So we give whoever's writing it, whether or not they're getting a direct paycheck from Grafana Labs or they're a contractor, here's the story we want to tell. Here's all the information. Here's the recording. Here's the main points. Go. You know, a lot of times we don't even involve them in the interview. We do it all ourselves because, again, anytime we interview somebody, we try to know the story we're trying to tell, and then we just hand it off to the writer. That also then allows us to not have to schedule around 4 other people, right? You know, the more writers, the more part of the content team you add, the more intricate it becomes.
Love that.
And so some writers are a little bit hesitant to do that. And, you know, other times, like if you're dealing with folks in APAC and you don't have somebody over there, you know, like when I was at Elastic, I'm still in California, but we had a bunch of customers in APAC where I onboarded a contractor and like we spent like 2 or 3 stories together, and then I handed it off to her and I just said, okay, cool, I'll give you the customers, you do it. But that's just because of time zones.
Yeah.
But even then, you're subtracting one person from it, whether it's yourself or the writer.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions, thoughts? Hopefully this was useful. And
yeah, this was super useful. And there's a lot of like shuffle going on the Dropbox side right now, and we're having a offsite to kind of smooth through some of these details, and the timing could not be better. So we have now, in addition to like the considerations we already had, some other great considerations that compare the different options. So this is exactly what we needed. I appreciate it so much, Daniel. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yes, thanks so much, Daniel. From the other end, I know I am now seeing what it is like to be a part of the marketing team and how you all operate. So that was very valuable for me as well.
Of course, happy to do it. And Connie, anything on your end? Any thoughts? Any questions? Any jokes? We're here. We reserved another 27 minutes. I'm sure that's always fun.
Thank you so much. No, this was definitely really helpful. It definitely resonated with me as well. I am team of 1, but we do have a content marketing manager, so really closely together.
Well, that's good. As long as and that's the main point is, I mean, you can get sort of stuck in that option 2 where you're in separate silos, but the more you can actively break out of it, the more you can actively make sure that you're aligned as much as possible. That's important. We have run into this with our creative team, right? The folks who are doing design and our website, you know, they have traditionally they've had their own OKRs. We've had our own OKRs, and like the last year and a half, I've been wanting to redesign our our success page, our customers page, and it keeps falling off because it's not on their OKR. So finally, at our last marketing all hands, we just all got together, sat in a room, developed our OKRs, and they put it on their list. Because I was able to show them like, hey, this is actually a reason why, as opposed to me just being like, hey, poke you, could you do this? Could you do this? Could you do this?
Yeah.
So it's valuable all over the organization, whether it's, customer marketing to content or customer marketing to design or whichever direction, or even customer marketing to, or even training to content, right? As long as you can show them the value or the reason why you're asking it, sometimes it's just as simple as adding the context and the light bulb goes off or on for that matter.
Mhm. Cool.
Cool. Well, y'all know where to find me if you have any further questions or if I can be of any other assistance. I'm more than happy to. But I know everyone's busy, so if there's nothing else, I'll happily give y'all back 25 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's it for me. I appreciate your time. I connected with you on LinkedIn. And if I have any follow-up, email's okay?
Email's totally fine. It's just daniel.palay@grafana.com.
Okay,
Or
cool.
you can hit me up on LinkedIn and I can give you my email address there. Or I'm I think I'm Daniel Palay on the CMA Slack channel.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much. Very helpful.
No problem. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Bye.